So first of all, we need to understand what it's all about. So first of all, it's just giving a background of the anatomy, where it's located, and what it does. So the cerebellum is the origin of the brain that plays an important role in the motor control. It's located at the back of the brain, under lining of the occipital and the temporal lobes of the cerebral cortex. The main parts, it has two hemispheres, which you can see on the diagram right here, down part and the lower part. And mhm, mhm. And it continues saying that it varies from the primary, varies horizontal, varies in the posterior, varies lobes, anterior lobes and posterior lobes of the postfollicle lobes, as we saw in the diagram. Moving on. Now it's the structure of the cerebellum. So it consists of two parts: the outer gray matter cerebellar cortex, cerebellar nucleus, inner, and the wider cerebellum. So we're going to start with the cerebellar cortex, which is the first part. It is composed of three layers of the cerebellar structure. The outer um, molecular layer of the intermedia, and we have also like the prejacular layer in the inner granular layer. So in this part, you can see that it contains of in the cerebral cortex, it contains of three other parts. So which is the molecular, the prejacular layer, and the granular layer, whereby they're also indicating like this one, for example, the first one we can see it's the outermost layer of all of them, and comes the second one, which is the intermediate layer, which has the single layer of the cells called the prejacular cells, and they are called the femural common pathways because it's all impulses from the cortex to the other parts of the brain go to these cells. So this one it carries like all the cells and the impulses which are being sent throughout the body. And lastly, we have the granular, which is the outermost and formed by the granular cells. Continuing. According to this, it's just giving us like an explanation according to the granular nuclear masses in the same the cortex, whereby the gray it's scattered in the white matter that fungos of the nuclear near the middle line, fungosis nuclear lateral to the nucleus, fatigis more probably forms nuclear below the nuclearis, fatingula, mentated nuclear lateral to all the other nucleus. So this is the second part of the structure, which is the white matter, whereby it's formed by afferent and inferent fibers. These are classified into three groups. Projections fibers is connected to the cerebellum, to the other parts of the brain associated with the fibers. It contains regions of the same hemisphere, consumer fibers, and it connects areas of the both hemispheres. So you can see it's taking major part of connecting the two hemispheres. Continuing. So the functional part of the cerebellum. So basically, we're going to see like it normally works to the motor, like the mobility of the body, which regulates the tone, the posture, the equilibrium or the equilibrium vestibulo cerebellum, the spinal cerebellum regulation of the coordination movements in the corticocerebellum. So mainly, it uh, helps in posturing of the body. It helps for us in terms of not to fall, like in terms of a balancing state And also about the tone, we can say that it helps, like in terms of the muscle interactions, according to the position and the balancing of the movement in the body. And on the vestibular, we can say that it connects the vestibular apparatus so that it can call the vestibulo cerebellum compositions of the two both lobes that we can see them. Continuing. Here it's just also explaining about the apparatus in terms of how like in terms of the same posturing. Yeah, we may skip this part. And however, the functions, we may also have dysfunctions like problems in the cerebellum, which may include tumors like cancer. We have genetic disorders. This may occur during birth, like before birth, like inside the womb. And we have the adixia, which is a failure of the muscle control in the arms or the legs, which result in movement disorders, whereby the person can even be paralyzed. And we have degradation disorders, which is caused by the brain cells decreasing the size or wasting away. So in this case, it may happen in the brain itself that maybe there was a disformity. So we cannot be able to be normal as a normal human being, I could say. Moving on. So here are some of the research methods that people or doctors, I can say, use in order to find out if every function is working properly in cerebellum. It can also be used as all part of the brain, but we're talking on the cerebellum part. So we may have the first research in terms of the EEG, which is the um, electrophalograph. The electrophalograph is used to show the brain activity in certain physiological states, such as the alertness or the dullness. It is useful in the diagnosis of seizures and other medical problems that involve an overlapped position estimation of the topography. So here we may also continue by saying EPT, which is another way of finding out inside the brain. So we may find the posterior emission topography scans, whereby it measures the levels of the sugars of glucose in the brain in order to illustrate where the neuron firing is taking place. This works because active neurons use glucose as a fuel or lack of activity in certain parts of the brain. And lastly, we may use the MRI, which is the magnetic resonance imaging, whereby it uses strong magnetic fields to align spinning automatic nuclear within the body tissues. This disturbance of axis of the rotation of this nuclear and observed the radio frequency spectrum generated as the nuclear return to the baseline of the status. So these are some of the, I can say, instruments that I used, like already the ones that I've already read. So the effective ones, family, we can say it's the MRI. It's really effective when seeing like what's really wrong or to see how functional the brain is.